Chapter 10. Small puddles of water glistened across the pavement like hundreds of glowing eyes. The endless stretch of asphalt seemed to shimmer and gleam. To Jenny's eyes, the rain had transformed the parking lot, washed away its solid reality, turned it into a dark, sparkling jewel spread out around her feet. Nothing is real, she thought. Not the darkened stores of the mall, not my car in this vast, empty parking lot, not this old-fashioned style street lamp I'm standing under. The rain has enchanted everything, like fairy dust. She let her eyes blur until everything seemed to come together as one glistening dark light. Then she brought it back into focus, scraped her wet sneakers against the pavement, and looked for Cal. Where was he? He was supposed to meet her here at the far end of the Walker Mall parking lot, behind a donut hole, he had said, off in the back corner of the endless lot, back where they kept the large green bins for people to drop in old used clothing for some church charity. The rain had stopped nearly 15 minutes ago. Jenny had arrived early, had parked and watched the stores go dark, one by one, as if in a chain reaction. Then she had watched the last of the cars drive off into the glowing wet darkness. All alone on this unending parking lot, she had climbed out of the car, grateful for the fresh smell of the air, the cool dampness of it. It felt so good on her skin. The air was so wet that droplets formed in her hair. Where's Cal? She began to pace from her car to the clothing bins, under the yellow cone of light from the tall, curved street lamp. It was late, very late. Why had she agreed to meet him so late at night? Why had she agreed on this strange, unearthly meeting place, this empty, cratered planet of a parking lot? Because she wanted to see him, because he had asked her to meet him here. I'm all alone, Jenny thought. I can do anything. I can dance. I can sing. This whole glowing, fresh world is mine. She began to hum to herself as she paced from the car to the big green bins, then back again. It grew darker suddenly. The pavement lost its sparkle. Jenny looked up to see that a thick curtain of clouds had covered the moon. There were no stars. The sky was black and solid, tar black. She began to feel impatient. It wasn't right of Cal to keep her waiting in this corner of the dark, empty lot. It wasn't right. She felt a drop of water on her forehead, cold and startling. Then a drop on her shoulder. It was beginning to rain, a cold sprinkle. Cal, where are you? Hurry, please. You know I'm waiting out here for you. She stopped when she heard the scraping sound. Where was it coming from? Just the wind? The wind didn't scrape, did it? Cal, is that you? Cal, are you here? The parking lot was so dark. Most of the other street lamps were out for some reason, knocked out by the rain maybe. Someone groaned, very nearby. Cal? She felt a sudden cold tremor of fear avalanche down her spine. Something moved. Something scraped. Someone groaned. Again. Cal? Please? Her heart seemed to stop. She had to force herself to breathe. Then, standing under the yellow light, the cold rain beginning to fall, standing halfway between the car and the clothing bins, she saw the hand, and then the arm. Oh! There was a hand sticking out of the clothing bin. No! Is it Cal? Has something horrible happened to Cal? Is that his hand? His arm? Without thinking, without hesitating, she ran to the bin, pushed on the lid, grabbed the hand, so cold, such a cold hand, and pulled. As she tugged, the cold hand came to life. It gripped her hand in an icy hold. Hey! She cried. She pulled, and the figure climbed out of the bin, emerged as if floating out. Still gripping her hand, he stepped under the light. No, she screamed, struggling to free herself from his grasp. Please, no! He grinned at her, his face olive green under the street lamp. Mr. Hagen grinned at her. One eye was missing, revealing a dry, empty socket. His skull showed through where pieces of his cheek and forehead flesh had decayed and fallen off. The stench was so strong. The stench swirled around him, swirled around both of them, holding her, drawing her toward him, not letting her run. Jenny, he whispered, holding her so tightly in his icy grip. When he opened his mouth to utter her name, she could see the gaps in his mouth, the rotting black teeth. Jenny, he repeated, his voice nothing but dry, rancid air. A black bug crawled over his swollen tongue. He repeatedly licked his dry lips, but his tongue was dry and caked with dirt. No, Jenny screamed. Let me go. I'm begging you. You're dead. You're dead. Let me go. Jenny. I'm back. Chapter 11. Then I woke up screaming my head off, Jenny said, twisting and untwisting a dark strand of hair. Mom was already in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to wake me up, trying to get me out of that horrible dream. Dr. Schindler cleared his throat but didn't say anything. He fiddled with his desk clock, waiting for Jenny to continue. It was kind of the same dream I've had before, she said, except it was in a different place, and it seemed more real somehow. More real? The psychiatrist asked, his green eyes suddenly coming to life. Yes, all the rain. I could feel the rain, feel the dampness of the air, and the colors, and the smell. Jenny made a disgusted face, remembering. I swear, Dr. Schindler, I could still smell the stench of Mr. Hagen, that smell of decay, of rotting meat, even after I woke up. A very vivid dream, Dr. Schindler muttered, checking his tape player, then returning his glance to her. You say it took place in a different location this time? Yes. All the other times I dreamed it, I was at the rock quarry, Jenny said, nervously twisting the strand of hair. Not at a mall parking lot. I don't know why I was at that parking lot. The room was silent for a while. Jenny could hear the soft hum of the tape player and the bubble of water in the coffee maker across the room from her. She stared at Dr. Schindler's carefully lined up diplomas on the wall, waiting for him to say something, wondering if he was waiting for her. Can you think of something else that's different about this dream? He asked finally. It was obvious to her that he had something in mind. Why didn't he just say it? Why did he only ask questions and force her to do all the work? Something else different? Jenny thought hard, staring at the diplomas until they blurred into one big diploma. Well, I guess it's the first time Cal was in the dream. He wasn't really in the dream, was he? The doctor asked quietly, leaning forward on the mahogany desk. Well, no, but he was the reason I was in the parking lot. He was the reason. Yes, Jenny answered sharply. What was Dr. Schindler leading her to? Why do you think he was in your dream in this manner? He asked her. Jenny thought about it. I don't know. Do you think maybe you're unsure about Cal? Dr. Schindler asked. Are you maybe unsure of his motives? Are you possibly a little suspicious of Cal? I don't know. I don't think so, Jenny answered quickly, feeling confused. These frightening phone calls you were telling me about, the doctor continued. Do you think that somewhere in your mind you might suspect Cal of making them? Cal? No, Jenny exclaimed. How could I? I mean, how could he? How could Cal know what Mr. Hagen whispered to me when he made those frightening calls? I'm just trying to get you to think about the dream, Dr. Schindler said, settling back in his big leather desk chair. Tell me more about the phone calls. There isn't much more to tell, Jenny said, her mind whirling with too many thoughts at once. I get them late at night, the same hoarse whisper, the same words. It's just so scary. Jenny sat up, hoping to clear her head. Dr. Schindler, am I going crazy? These calls. Sometimes after such a violent trauma, the doctor said, our imagination doesn't settle down for a while. What? Jenny jumped angrily to her feet. You think I imagined those phone calls? Please, let me finish, Dr. Schindler said calmly, motioning for her to resume her place on the couch. I'm not trying to upset you, Jenny, but we have to think about these things very carefully and consider all kinds of possibilities. Jenny was too angry and upset to sit down. She stood in front of the couch with her arms crossed tightly in front of her. And you think the phone calls I got the other night was all of my imagination? I think the phone calls might be like your dreams, the doctor said, clasping the edge of his desk with both hands. Your dreams are so vivid, so lifelike, you can even smell them. Who's to say that the same impulses that drives these dreams aren't also driving you to... I don't understand what you're saying, Jenny screamed. He looked at his desk clock, raking his hand quickly through his coppery hair. Our time is up for today. It's just as well, I believe. We need to be calm if we are to discuss this properly. How can I be calm? Jenny cried. She felt hurt, betrayed even. Dr. Schindler obviously thought she was crazy. How could she be imagining those terrifying phone calls? They were real. They had to be real. Or was she really cracking up? Would you like to schedule an extra session for tomorrow? Dr. Schindler asked, standing up, staring at her intently. An extra session? If it would help make you feel better, he said, stretching. No, I can't, she said, her head spinning. I have to babysit for Eli all day. I was there all morning, and I have to work tomorrow, too. The Wexners need me more often than they thought they would. How did it go with Eli this morning? The doctor asked, walking her to the door. Not well. Eli was mad at me for some reason. I couldn't get him to tell me why. He said he hated me, but then wouldn't say another word. You've had an upsetting day, Dr. Schindler said sympathetically. Can I prescribe something to calm you? Some sleeping pills? He opened the door to the waiting room with one hand and put his other hand on Jenny's shoulder. Miss Gurney looked up from her desk outside the door. It really wouldn't hurt to take a sleeping pill tonight, he told Jenny softly. Okay, Jenny relented. Maybe it's a good idea. He walked her over to Miss Gurney's desk, his hand on her shoulder, and quickly scribbled a prescription in the illegible handwriting that all doctors share. He tore it off the pad and handed it to her with a warm smile, the first time Jenny had seen him smile all afternoon. A little sleep should help, he said, turning back toward his office. Please call me any time if you need to. He closed the door behind him. Jenny collected her bag from the coat closet. You look tired today, Miss Gurney said, studying Jenny's face. I didn't sleep too well last night, Jenny replied. She said goodbye to the receptionist and headed out to the street. It was a hot, humid afternoon, the sun still high in the sky. A wall of dark gray clouds appeared to be moving closer from the south. It was probably going to rain again. Walking quickly down the hill to the bus stop, Jenny reached into her bag to see if she had remembered to bring bus fare. To her surprise, she felt something prickly in her bag. Prickly and squishy. Had something spilled? What could it be? She wrapped her hand around it and pulled it out of her bag. Several people nearby on the sidewalk turned, startled, as Jenny screamed and dropped her bag. She screamed again, staring at the dead tarantula in her hand. Chapter 12. Jenny ran into the house, slamming the door behind her, tossed down her bag, and headed for the phone. She punched in a Wexner's number, her heart still pounding. She couldn't overlook this horrid joke of Eli's. She had to tell Mrs. Wexner about it. For one thing, it was a really cruel joke for Eli to play on her, knowing that she was afraid of spiders. But more importantly, he had actually killed one of his pets just to play a joke. His parents had to know about this, Jenny decided. The phone rang once, twice. After the 8th ring, she slammed the receiver down in frustration. Ah! She screamed at the top of her lungs, knowing she was the only one home. It didn't make her feel any better. What a spectacle she had made of herself on the sidewalk near Dr. Schindler's office. There she was, shrieking like a crazy person, all of her belongings strewn about her feet, a dead tarantula in her hand. Everyone on the sidewalk thought I was totally nuts, Jenny thought, shaking her head. Maybe I am totally nuts. Dr. Schindler thinks so too. She thought of how he suggested that she might be imagining the whispered phone calls from Mr. Hagen, and felt the anger well up inside her all over again. Could he be right? She had always had a wild imagination. Her fantasies and daydreams had often seemed as real to her as things had actually happened, and her dreams had always been so vivid and lifelike. But could she be so confused about what is real and what isn't that she fantasized those frightening phone calls, and then believed them to be real? Thinking about this was giving her a headache. She walked into the kitchen and took a Coke from the refrigerator. After several long gulps from the can, she glanced up at the clock over the stove. 4:30. Oh no, she cried aloud. She was supposed to meet Claire and Rick at 4:30 at the tennis courts behind the high school. They were getting off work early so they could play a few games of tennis with her. Jenny ran upstairs, grabbed her tennis racket, looked at herself in the mirror, gave her tousled hair a quick brush, then hurried out of the house, planning to jog the 3 blocks to the school. Hey, Jenny, a voice called at the foot of the drive. She cried out, startled. Cal, what are you doing here? Just wanted to say hi, he said, running up to her and giving her a shy smile, his blue eyes burning into hers. I'm late, she said awkwardly. I'm supposed to be playing tennis with my friends. Oh, I see. His face filled with disappointment. Hey, do you play? She asked. We could use a fourth, actually. Then we could play real doubles. I could give it a try, he said, smiling. That's what you said when I asked if you'd ever skated before, Jenny said, laughing. And you turned out to be great at it. Beginner's luck, he said with a shrug. He was wearing a denim work shirt and faded jean cutoffs. Jenny thought he looked really great. She ran back into the house and got a tennis racket for him. They started together toward the school. Which ends do you hold? This skinny part here? Cal asked, flipping the racket in his hands. Very funny, Jenny said, making a face. You're in a swell mood today, he said as they jogged across Henry Street. Jenny waved to Mrs. Russell, out pulling up weeds as usual. Oh, you noticed, Jenny replied. I'm not exactly having a great day. Until I arrived? He asked innocently. Let's see what kind of tennis player you are, she said, making a half-hearted attempt at a joke. When they arrived at the courts, the afternoon sun beginning to lower behind the 3-story brick high school, Claire and Rick were already playing. Rick was clowning around as usual, trying to return the ball from behind his back. Claire looked a lot like a flamingo, Jenny thought, her long legs exposed under her white tennis shorts. As Jenny and Cal pulled open the gate and entered the court, Claire and Rick stopped their game. Jenny apologized for being late. I'm sure you had a good excuse, Rick said, flashing her his goofy smile, sweat pouring down his broad forehead. Yeah, somebody put a dead tarantula in my bag, Jenny said bitterly. Ah, come on, you can do better than that, Rick joked. Jenny didn't laugh. She gave him a dirty look instead. Then she introduced Cal to them. I'm going to Harrison in the fall, Cal said, pointing to the high school with his racket. Lucky duck, Rick said sarcastically. Can we play? Claire urged, looking at her watch. It's getting late. They divided up, Claire and Rick on one side, Jenny and Cal on the other. They warmed up a bit and then began to play. It became quickly obvious to Jenny that, as with skating, Cal was not quite the beginner he claims to be. In fact, he was a skilled player. What a phony, Jenny thought, watching him serve. Why does he always have to act as if he's never tried something before? Ow, that was out, Rick called, sounding angry for some reason. It was in, I think, Cal said quietly. No way, it was out, Rick insisted heatedly. Cal sighed, shrugged, and served again. Rick hit it back hard, nearly taking Cal's head off. Hey, Cal cried, ducking back, surprised. Come on, show us something, Rick challenged him, gripping the racket in his beefy hands. Rick, chill out. What's your problem? Claire asked. Rick ignored her. He continued to challenge Cal. I've never seen Rick like this, Jenny thought. He's usually so relaxed, so easy-natured. That was out, Rick called, red-faced. It was clearly in, Jenny thought. What is Rick trying to prove? As the game continued, the two boys seemed to forget the girls were there. This isn't a game, thought Jenny. It's a personal battle of some kind. Shouting and cursing, the boys batted the ball back and forth. Both of them seemed to grow angrier and angrier. Double fault, Rick cried. Cal screamed, and angrily tossed his racket at the net. He came running toward Rick, fury in his eyes. Rick moved forward, dropping his racket, prepared for a fight. But Cal stopped at the net. He was breathing hard, glaring at Rick. Rick stopped too, and bent to pick up his racket. That's it, Claire declared. I quit. Rick turned around, looked startled to find her still there. Hey, sorry, he called to her, raising his t-shirt to mop his sweaty forehead. What's with you today, Rick? What's all the yelling and carrying on? Claire asked him, clearly disgusted. It works for McEnroe, Rick declared, his good humor beginning to return. I've got to get home anyway, Jenny said, feeling confused about what had just happened. Nice meeting you guys, Cal said, bending over to pick up the racket he had thrown. Claire walked over to Jenny and bent down to whisper in her ear. I think Rick put on his little show for you? Huh? What do you mean? Jenny asked, bewildered. I think Rick was showing off for you. Why else would he be acting so weird? I don't know. Maybe his tennis shorts are too tight, Jenny cracked. As usual, Claire didn't laugh at Jenny's joke. Her face, flushed from the exertion of the game, remained thoughtful. Jenny suddenly noticed that Rick was staring at her, as if seeing her for the first time. His face was bright red. His black hair was matted down from all the sweat. See you, Jenny said, giving him a little wave. Yeah, he called. Come to the shoe store sometime. I'll show you how to work a shoehorn. Jenny laughed even though it was a stupid joke. She waited for Cal to catch up with her. They crossed the street and headed toward her house. Some game, Jenny said. Cal apologized. He kept egging me on, challenging me, he explained. I guess I just got carried away. He's not usually like that, Jenny said, taking his arm. Neither am I, Cal replied. Hey, I forgot to tell you, he said, stopping and turning to her. I got a job at Mulligan's, the ice cream store in the mall, for the rest of the summer. That's great, Jenny exclaimed. Can you get me a discount on a double scoop cone? Sure, Cal said, smiling. You'll have to come meet me there sometime. I can probably get you sprinkles on it even, if you're good. Oh, I'm very good, Jenny said playfully. They were at the bus stop. This is where I get off, Cal said. I've got to get home. Here comes the bus. He reached into his pocket for change. See you soon, Jenny said, Save me some mint chocolate chip, that's my favorite. She watched him climb onto the bus, still thinking about the angry competition of the tennis match. Cal seems so nice, she thought, watching the bus pull away, but he sure lost his temper at Rick. She wondered if she was seeing the real Cal when they were together, or whether he put on an act for her. She hoped she was seeing the real Cal. Then, carrying both rackets, still replaying the events of the day in her troubled mind, she walked slowly home. "I don't believe it," Mrs. Wexner cried, holding her hands up to her face to show her surprise. Sitting at the kitchen counter the next morning, Jenny had just told her about the dead tarantula. "That's impossible," Mrs. Wexner insisted, gulping down the last drop of coffee in her cup, nearly dropping the cup as she tried to replace it on its saucer. "Why would Eli do that, Jenny?" "As a joke, I think," Jenny replied. "A practical joke." "But Eli cares about those awful tarantulas as much as anything he owns," Mrs. Wexner said. "I just can't imagine him killing one of them in order to play a stupid joke on you." She glanced nervously at her watch, stood up, and carried the cup and saucer to the sink. Her toast lay on its plate uneaten. "I'm late, but we've got to get to the bottom of this." She motioned for Jenny to follow her, and the two of them hurried up the stairs to Eli's room. They found him tapping away at his computer keyboard, even though he hadn't had breakfast yet. "Eli?" his mother called cautiously. He typed a while longer, then turned around. He looked at his mother, then at Jenny. His face didn't reveal much emotion at all, just mild annoyance at having been interrupted. "Eli, did you play a joke on Jenny?" his mother demanded accusingly. "Huh?" His narrow face filled with innocent surprise. "Did you put a dead tarantula in Jenny's bag?" Mrs. Wexner asked, getting right to the point. "My tarantulas aren't dead," Eli exclaimed, looking over at the cage. The idea seemed to upset him immediately. Mrs. Wexner gave Jenny a puzzled glance. Jenny stared at Eli, trying to see through this innocent act he was putting on. "Eli, no one's angry at you," Mrs. Wexner said softly. "We just want to know if you played a joke on Jenny." He shook his head no. Mrs. Wexner is afraid of her own son, Jenny thought. "You didn't give her a tarantula?" "They're my tarantulas," he insisted. "I'm not giving them to anybody." "But, Eli, I found a tarantula in my bag yesterday," Jenny said, speaking softly as his mother had done. "You're the only person I know who has tarantulas, so—" "Take a look," Eli said, jumping up and walking over to the glass cage. Jenny and Mrs. Wexner quickly joined him there. "Look," Eli said, pointing. 1, 2, 3. They're all here." Jenny counted them. Sure enough, all 3 tarantulas were inside, 2 of them crawling around, one of them motionless, pressed up against one of the corners. "I'm sorry, Eli," Jenny said quickly, feeling very confused and embarrassed. "You shouldn't say I did bad things when I didn't," Eli said angrily, crossing his thin arms over his chest. "Jenny said she was sorry," Mrs. Wexner said, coming quickly to Jenny's defense, but she gave Jenny a suspicious look. "I'm really sorry," Jenny said, leaning down and putting her hands on Eli's slender shoulders. He immediately pulled away from her. "Go away," he said suddenly. He turned and started to walk away, and then suddenly he uttered a loud wail and burst into tears. Jenny froze in surprise. She'd never seen him cry before. His mother rushed to comfort him, throwing her arms around him and pulling him into a tight hug. But Eli continued to wail, a high-pitched wail like a baby might make, his eyes shut tight, large tears rolling down his cheeks. "Eli, I'm sorry, Jenny called, but he was crying too loudly to hear her. With a loud burst of anger, he pulled out of his mother's hug and flung himself face down on the bed, crying into the bedsheet, slapping his fists in fury against the mattress. "We'd better leave him alone for a while," Mrs. Wexner whispered. Horrified, feeling terribly shaken and guilty, Jenny followed her back downstairs. Why on earth is Eli carrying on like this? Jenny asked herself, her mind racing from thought to thought. Is he that hurt I accused him unjustly? Or is he making a big scene to cover up his guilt? I didn't imagine the tarantula, Jenny thought. I didn't imagine it. "I'm afraid you've gotten off to a bad start with Eli this morning," Mrs. Wexner said, shaking her head as she glanced at her watch. "But he'll come around. Just let him cry it out. Then be really nice to him." "I feel so bad," Jenny started. "Oh, I'm really late. Got to run." Mrs. Wexner grabbed up her car keys from the low table by the door. "I guess someone else played the joke on me," Jenny said uncertainly. Who? Who would do that? Who else would get a dead tarantula to stuff in her bag? Who could get into her bag without her knowing it? Mrs. Wexner didn't seem to have heard what Jenny said. "Good luck with Eli. Just be careful with him. Once he stops crying, be extra nice to him," she instructed, and disappeared out the back door, heading to the garage. She didn't care at all, Jenny thought bitterly, hearing the car grind for a few seconds and then start up. She doesn't care about anything but keeping Eli calm. The little monster had to be the one who put the tarantula in her bag. He had to, and then he replaced a dead one with a new one. But I'll never prove that. And what's the point? One more story to tell Dr. Schindler. One more thing for him to suggest maybe I made up. She slumped into the bench in front of the kitchen counter and chewed off a bit of Mrs. Wexner's cold toast. It tasted like cardboard. She could barely swallow it. Dr. Schindler isn't helping me at all, she decided. I feel more uncertain about things, about myself, now than ever. I don't feel any more confident. I don't feel as if I'm getting anywhere. And what if I really did imagine those phone calls? What if I really am cracking up? She shook her head as if trying to shake away the glum thoughts. Then she walked to the stairwell and listened. Silence. The crying seemed to have stopped. She listened for a while longer. Then, satisfied that he wasn't crying, shouted up, "Eli, what do you want for breakfast?" No reply. "Eli? Go away," he screamed, still sounding angry and out of control. She started up the stairs. "Eli, you've got to have breakfast. Go away, go away, go away! I don't want to see you, I don't!" he shrieked. She was halfway up the stairs when she heard a loud crash. Eli screamed. Then she heard another crash that sounded like something heavy falling. "Eli, what was that?" Silence. She flew up the stairs, 2 at a time. "Eli, are you okay?" Silence. Into his room, a scene of disarray. The bedclothes had been stripped off the mattress and tossed in a tangle on the floor. The desk chair lay on its side in the middle of the room. Books and papers and art supplies were scattered everywhere. And sprawled on his back on the carpet lay Eli, his eyes frozen in a glassy stare, his head tilted at an odd angle, his mouth hanging slack and unmoving, one arm bent underneath him, a puddle of dark blood under his head.